So I think each of the sports leagues has done a wonderful job of dealing with the day-to-day health issues with which they've all been confronted. If our criterion is the execution of a schedule in a linear kind of uninterrupted fashion, then I think clearly the NFL has done a fantastic job. We've had minimal disruption. Their safety protocols have been incredible. We saw that at the onset of the season, what the league set out to do and accomplish. And I think for the most part, they've done a fantastic job. Going back to Major League Baseball, I think they did a fantastic job as well. There were a few teams that probably didn't adhere as closely to the protocols as the league would have liked. But for the most part, we got off a very, very consistent and predictable baseball schedule, especially in the postseason. College football was probably our most challenging sport, Andy. It was difficult to predict, frankly, day to day almost, what teams would participate. A lot of it may have to do with the fact that their environment and the nature of the participants were a little bit more difficult to manage. So that was a very, very significant challenge for us, getting college football off. In fact, we were all crossing our fingers that we would get the Big Ten championship and all the other games in this season. We lost our second most valuable and important game in the Michigan-Ohio State matchup. So college football is probably our biggest challenge. As you know, earlier, NASCAR was one of the first sports, if not the first sport back. That was fantastic, the way they executed that. So Major League Soccer also minimal disruption. So we were very happy for the most part about how the leagues and everyone managed their schedules. Facing their challenges, I can only imagine. And we were very, very pleased that we got as many games in as we did.
Now, Seth, I wanted to ask about sort of the change of advertising, the expectations, the work that your team is doing, your crew at Fox, in terms of changes around live spots, sponsorships, integrated marketing deals. What do advertisers want from a network, and how are you guys responding to that?
So I think what advertisers really most sought in this COVID environment was the ability to deliver impressions to them. That was the most important thing. And we saw that throughout the entire resumption of team sports, individual sports in May with NASCAR and through the fourth quarter. They needed impressions, and sports was probably the single most important repository of those impressions. With some of the challenges of not being able to execute on-site sponsorships in the manner in which we had originally negotiated, advertisers very much worked with us. I think you saw we did a Hummer launch that we took out to the West Coast. Thursday Night Football normally exists on the New York set outside of our headquarters in New York, but we moved it to the West Coast and we launched out there. We did the same thing with Samsung in Major League Baseball. We did a 4D 5G launch for them for their handset. So we've managed to kind of work with our advertisers, understanding the obstacles in executing some of the sponsorships we had. We've had time period changes where games might move out of pattern to a different day part, and our advertisers, for the most part, worked with us as we worked with them. We wanted to deliver to them as much value as we possibly could, considering all of the obstacles with which we were confronted. I think that the team did an excellent job. The biggest challenge, Andy, was just moving inventory around as events migrated to different day parts, different weeks. That was the biggest challenge. And I can't tell you enough how much hard work and how much we appreciate, Fox appreciates all the work that our planning teams did to make sure that advertisers delivered that which we committed to.
So big changes in terms of consumption accelerated by the pandemic, as we all know, through IP connected devices of various sorts. How does that affect you guys in terms of an audience that's changing, opportunities through different platforms? How does sports shake out and all that?
So one of the first things, Andy, that we decided to do, I came to Fox Sports in January of 19. And one of the philosophical decisions we made was to embrace a pass-through sales protocol for all of our network assets. And that allowed us to reach all of our viewers of a particular sport and users with one commercial messaging that we migrated across all platforms. So we knew that people will go back and forth between linear devices, I should say mobile devices, as well as in-home devices. So we wanted to be able to reach and deliver all connected devices along with our in-home experience, so that we could accommodate any migration back and forth. Connected devices are a reality. We all know that. OTT is a reality. We all know that. And we embrace it. I think what we've seen with the proliferation of OTT devices is that we have not seen as much attrition in our viewership and our subscriptions as we had perhaps forecasted. So we've seen, in fact, since probably the early part of the summer, we've seen a kind of stabilization of the impact of cord cutting to our viewership and our distribution. So we're fine. I mean, I think people find sports wherever they want to find sports. They're fans, and they know where their teams are, and they find them through whatever means.
And along with these sort of new cross-screen devices and scenarios, there's an opportunity to target audiences. Tell us a little about targeting audiences, and more specifically, targeting young people who I know are very much important for you guys to kind of keep the pipeline going. Let's talk about audience targeting and getting and retaining young people.
So I've mentioned to you that we do pass through. We have some DAI inventory that our team utilizes largely on our cable networks. And we do programmatic as well, but the demand is so great from our linear sales team. There's very little inventory. We don't really have a lot of programmatic inventory for sale right now. So it hasn't been a necessity for us because we are so well sold, frankly, in many cases, selling out just by the very nature of how we have always done business. So that's just the reality of where we are right now. I do think that reaching younger viewers is very important. And I think that's something that we and the leagues are very mindful of, that we find our content accessible on platforms that younger users and viewers are embracing. But largely that's up to the leagues as to how they license their content, what kind of deals they do. So I think every league is now very, very mindful of that. And as these deals come up, they're going to negotiate with us and others in a manner in which it allows for that content to find its way to platforms that younger viewers and users embrace.
And Seth, finally, I wanted to ask, what is the value of live sports to a marketer? I mean, that's, in your view, and sort of what the expectations are of brands who make investments in live sports.
Well, live sports is probably the most predictable of all media genres. There's a rich track record of the ratings and the deliveries of these sports. There's also an assurance of scale for most sports, whether it's college football or the NFL or even baseball, NASCAR. So I think they know that these users are going to be engaged, they're passionate. And frankly, it's the one genre of media that has been least affected by SVOD services and to some degree AVOD services that have frankly debilitated other forms of media. Sports is it's the best form of advertising, in my opinion. The sports genre is the best investment that advertisers can make. It's been a very, very healthy marketplace in the fourth quarter. We've seen no reduction, if anything, an increase in demand for sports GRPs and sports investment. And everything points in 2021 to having an even better year than we had in 2020.